What is good, everybody? Juliana Page here, and I'm going to riff on a topic that feels very spirit-led in this moment and is really inspiring, and I think is going to help all the ears that hear it. So first of all, I do a life group gathering every Monday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And essentially what this life group is it's a group of women, usually, that get together to do life together and to bring life to one another. So it's those that are seeking spirit-led living and really need some empowerment and support and permission to be who they are and celebrate any season that they're in, whether that's a season of a lot of unknowns, whether that's a season of heartbreak and re-exploration of self, whether that's a season of a lot of celebration. You need people around you, and the hardest time to build community is when you need it. So that is an ongoing group, and I bring it up because we explored some spirit-led questions just yesterday, actually, and I just want to give them to you. So if you have a notepad of some kind and can write these down, I encourage you to do so. But first of all, I would love for you to answer these without a filter and do not overthink it, especially if you're an overthinker. Just write down the first thing that comes to mind. So I'm just going to kind of go through them quickly, and I will share a bit about what my process has been as I've done this, because I do this often to kind of check in and just really invest in my own personal development and see if I'm in alignment, see if I'm in integrity. These get me every time. Number one is, who do you work for? Who do you work for? Again, don't overthink this question. Just write down your first gut instinct answer to these questions, okay? So who do you work for? Next, who do you represent? Who do you represent? Where do you get your direction from? From the minute you wake up in the morning to when your head hits your bed, hits your pillow at night, where are you getting your direction from? How are you making your decisions? What is informing those? Think about that. And then when you think of taking your life to the next level, what is on your mind? What does that look like? When you think of taking your life to the next level, what is on your mind? Again, no filter, no overthinking, just brain dump. You can even list things. How can you be more intentional with your life journey? How can you be more intentional with your life journey? What is the most recent piece of advice that God has given you? If you could sum it up in a sentence, what is your most recent piece of advice God has given you? Who do you love? Why do you love? And what is your purpose? So when I've written these down, they're always, like I said, very informative. For me, in some degree, largely, these should all point to God for me and for my value system. Have they always? Absolutely not. I can also gauge my fulfillment or my satisfaction or even my pain and my overwhelm and my stress based on if God is the answer or not. So for example, who do you work for? It should be God. Who do you represent? It should be God, right? Where do you get your direction from? It should be God. I should be answering all those as God for me in my life experience, to know that I'm aligned, to know that I'm confident, to know that I'm empowered, to know that I'm ready and I'm in position, right? But a lot of times, who do I work for? I work for man. I work for pleasing this person. I work for, right? Like in different seasons, it was very different answers. I work for a certain bank account that makes me comfortable, right? Who do you represent? Well, I represent my partner maybe, or I represent this church community, or I represent my parents or my family name, whatever it is, right? But it's important for me, for example, to have God be the answer, because God is the source for me of identity. Okay, so if the job were to change, if the partner were to change, if there were to be loss or something that leads you to grieve of some kind, right? That can put you into a very, let me say it like this, that could be really kind of a black hole, right? Because the death of your identity is really the death of your soul. You no longer know how to think. You no longer know how to feel. You no longer know how to process and navigate life. So I start with questions like that as an invitation for you to really explore where you're at in your own life. How do you answer those? Just see what question was highlighted to you. What one brought some new revelation and new perspective to you? What one kind of sat funny for you? Just pay attention, okay? Now, I mentioned I'm going to riff a little bit today because there was two main thoughts that in working in coaching relationships, quite a bit, relationship comes up. It's either often it's relationship or it's calling or purpose or what I'm on this earth to do, which I love both. And I've had a lot of experience. So there's two thoughts floating around. One, that there's only one person walking this earth that is right for me. And two, there's only one calling that I'm here to fulfill. And I honestly feel in my own beliefs that that is a scarcity mindset and that also it's very flawed. So for example, I might have one purpose, but the way I express my calling can be many different things. For example, I write, I speak, I coach, I facilitate, I do a lot, but I'm still under the umbrella of one purpose. So where that can get messy is some people can say, I haven't found my thing. I don't know what I'm called to do. And that can become an excuse for inaction. So that's where I'm going with that. Now, the other path with there's only one person on this earth for me, I don't believe that because I believe that you can be connected and have even attraction to many people on this earth, right? But there's one person potentially that you choose to become the one with. You basically become the one based on who you choose, right? So you become one together by what you build together. And you choose the one, right? There could be many options, but there's different things that you weigh, right? And some people choose the one over and over and over again. But I want to kind of, with these ideas in mind and how these thoughts can really block us or get us stuck. So I just want to explore and riff a little bit on this today. So having one calling leads to scarcity thinking, and believing that there's only one person on the earth that you're ordained to meet, right, is also, I believe, fundamentally flawed. Now, I also believe that as you grow, as you develop, as you mature, as you're walking with God, God will bring revelation, God will confirm, God will guide, but ultimately you're still choosing. Okay, so to weave these together, track with me for a minute. So how can you really assess if somebody is a potential one that you choose? I believe that there's four really important areas to pay attention to. So I'll call them stages. So 4 stages of importance. Number one is there's got to be admiration. There's got to be something that you're drawn to, something that you admire, something that is catching you on a deeper level than just physical. There's got to be some sort of admiration about whoever this is that is a potential human in your life. Number one. Number two, there's got to be mutual connection. It can't just be one person coming on strong, feeling that way, and the other person not so much. There's got to be connection. Okay. And a lot of people just stop here because we have admiration and connection. This can make it work. Or because I don't have an identity outside a relationship, I'm going to make this work. And that can become really, really dangerous. So admiration, connection, mutual connection, then it goes into commitment. And this one is so huge. A lot of times, like I said, we have admiration, we have connection, but if there is no commitment, basically that could be the right person, but the right person for you has got to be right and ready. If they're not ready, I don't care how you're showing up, it's not the right one for you. The right person will be right and ready, right? Because what really is compelling is building something together. And you can't do that with somebody that isn't right and that isn't ready. So you need right and ready to build something together. So again, 4 stages though. 1, admiration. 2, mutual connection. 3 is commitment. Because if there's no commitment, if there's no consistency in how this person shows up in any kind of way, if there's no agreement on what you guys are building together, there's no way that that can grow and develop, okay? And then compatibility. And this one is huge. You could have the first 3 stages. You could have admiration, mutual connection. There could be a commitment. But if you guys are not compatible, this could still lead to destruction and really this person not being the one for you long term, okay? So what do I mean by that? It could be you both don't have the same spiritual beliefs. That might seem like, oh, this person will get into it later. That'll be something that's okay. Well, if your core, for example, in my case, if my core is to live a spirit-led life, if I am with somebody who does not have that understanding and that good orderly direction in their own life, it's never going to work for me because I can't trust that this person hears from God, that this person is led by God, and that I can submit to leadership from this person if they're not hearing from God, right? Like I would never, that would just not equal compatibility for me personally. So that's an example. So for some people are huge on physical touch, huge. But if they have somebody that doesn't like public displays of affection, if they're somebody that's just against it for some reason or another, that's not compatible. And you can love each other, you can admire each other, you can be connected and committed, but if you're not compatible, it still is going to suck the life out of a relationship. So all 4 of these stages, my encouragement would be that these lead to somebody who's a potential for you. But a lot of times what we do is we just go off of 1 or 2 and then we try to build something that doesn't even have foundation. We ignore all the red flags. We understand that we're not compatible. We try to make it work. We try to push and force, but square peg, round hole. It's not going to work, right? Okay. So another thing to consider, this thought like, whoo, just came. So where we get it twisted a lot of times, whether it's for calling or relationship, is rather than bringing passion to the relationship or to the thing that we're doing that we're called to, we expect the relationship or the thing that we're working on to bring us passion. And do you see how destructive that could actually be to a relationship? We constantly look to another human to make us happy or make us feel alive and passionate. We're always going to be let down, right? Or if we keep looking to the thing that we're meant to bring passion and creativity and flow in life to bring us life, then we will smother it, we'll kill it, we'll hate it, we'll destroy it, and we'll quit, right? So keep that in mind. Okay. Now, I will say, because there is this lingering thought that I haven't found what I'm called to do, there's only one thing I've been put on this earth to do, or I haven't found the one, or I just need to keep waiting. All of these things that circle in our minds that a lot of people don't talk about, because we have these subconscious thoughts that become strongholds. They literally get a stronghold on our mind and we behave out of them. We show up and we act according to what we believe, right? So there's a quote, more is lost in indecision than in wrong decision. Whew, I hope you caught that. More is lost in indecision than in wrong decision. So rather than taking action, rather than getting feedback, we just stay stuck. And then we ask other people who maybe aren't even in a place to give us advice. And then we don't take their advice and we get more advice. And then we're like, I'm confused. And if you're spirit-led, you might say something like, I don't hear God. Well, it's because you're flooding your life with all of this feedback and you're taking no action, right? And here's the thing. Oh my goodness, here's the thing. An answer is a reward for all the action that you take. An answer is a reward for all the action that you take. So as you take action, you get feedback. And it's better to even make some decisions that maybe didn't play out the way you expected, but you're getting feedback and you can adjust, you can adapt, and you can learn something and you can grow and you can evolve. But if you just stay stuck and you stay stagnant, your mind is going to go crazy and then you're going to stay in that place because you'll talk yourself out of every single thing and get advice and probably create self-fulfilling prophecies in a lot of ways, okay? So if this is a relationship, let me speak to somebody who is in a relationship. Let's say you're at a point where you're like, I just need to throw in the towel. This relationship is awful. This person is not showing up the way that I need. It's been going on this long time. They do this, they do that. They don't do this, they don't do that. I just can't take it anymore. I'm so frustrated, blah, 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 right? Like how we do. Give it 3 months where you go all in for 3 months and see what happens when you go all in and then assess after 3 months. But a lot of times we don't even go all in. And then we expect our partner to do all of these things when we're not even showing up and being a right representation of what it is that we're about. And we're not bringing passion. We're not bringing life. We're bringing criticism and judgment and demands and stuff, right? So think about that. If you're in a place where you've had a lot of questions, you've had a lot of concerns, sometimes the best way to find out is to go all in for 3 months and then assess after the 3 months. All right? All right. So what I'm saying with calling, with relationship, really with calling is there's no perfect path. And no path is straight. It's windy, right? And that's why I believe in living a spirit-led life, because where are you going to get good, orderly direction apart from that? I know when I've self-navigated, I know when I've constantly sought after self-help and personal development, there's only so far that could take me. And it definitely didn't bring me inner fulfillment and peace. It just made me constantly on this journey of finding and seeking answers and just being caught up in all the noise. And that never made me more secure in myself. That never reinforced my identity, that brought me out of identity, that never helped me create authentically what I'm here to create. So you've got to really assess what it is that you're led to experiment with, so that's congruent with who you are, but understand too that there's no straight path. There's no perfect path. So you need to at least start taking action. So an example that I have for you, when I first after grad school became certified as a life coach, I in the very beginning was working a lot one-on-one because that's what I thought that you should do. That's what I thought would probably be the best business model for me. But I actually found out that I really disliked that. And that was something that was exhausting for me. But what I absolutely loved was groups and facilitating retreats and speaking and that stuff, because I just came alive in those situations. So that was something, though, that I learned from taking a lot of action and getting feedback, right? I would have never known that had I not done that. So that's an example. Okay, so moving on to relationship. There's been this question and I've seen it too. I've come up against it while I've been coaching people, that we're not designed to be with just one person. We're just not built to live however many years it is with somebody, 50 plus years with somebody. It's just not how the world works anymore, right? Now, I have very probably different beliefs, but I will give you a quote, and I'm not quite sure who it is that said this, but the quote is this: "The journey of discovery lies in not seeing new landscapes, but in seeing with fresh eyes." Oh my God, that's so good, right? The journey of discovery lies in not seeing new landscapes, but in seeing with fresh eyes. This blows my mind, and it's how I believe I have been able to be in a long-term relationship. It's how I believe many people that are in long-term relationships approach them and can stay in them. So for example, some people find their new in constantly hunting for the next relationship, right? We probably all know people like that. They're constantly hunting. for the next relationship. They want that new, they want a new landscape. So they do that through hunting for new relationships. Other people learn to see their partner, whether this is an innate trait or they learn how to do it, they learn to see their partner with new eyes. But what's true for both, whichever you might resonate with more, is that we, all of us, right, will never stay in the same relationship. Even if you're in a relationship with the same person, that person will constantly be evolving and changing and be different in some kind of way, right? So whether you're seeking new landscapes in the form of new relationships, or you're seeking to view and get to know your partner with new eyes, you're always going to be in a different relationship. No one will ever stay in the same relationship. And that's true whether it's progressing or regressing. Okay. So keep that in mind when you're thinking through relationships. And all of this today is just meant to be a riff to hopefully give you wisdom, hopefully give you encouragement, maybe new perspective that you can bring to your life and how you show up and live in it. Okay. So here's the thing. Some of the things that I've learned about relationships when they've not gone well is when one or both of the partners are trying to not create space, but close space. Okay. And it's almost like, I mean, so for an example, at the beginning of a relationship, you do want this kind of like closed space. You want to know that both people are in, right? But you also want open space. You want the freedom to evolve. Squashes desire. It literally brings out like the passion, the attraction, the admiration, all that stuff that was there in the beginning. There was like a sense of mystery. There was a sense of excitement. There was a sense of, I'm drawn to this. I'm excited about this. I'm inspired by this, right? I'm curious about this, right? But when everything is known and cozy and comfortable, like there's times and places for that in a relationship. But if you're trying to control your partner, if you're trying to keep it safe and known all the time, that literally sucks desire. It squashes desire out of the relationship. So keep that in mind. Now, the other note is that fear and insecurity squander flourishing. So a lot of times relationships flourish when each person continues to grow. They're both on a growth journey. They're both personally developing. They're getting new thoughts. They're getting new beliefs. They're having new conversations. They're learning. They're growing, right? And the deficit, the disappointment, the discouragement is when fear and insecurity try to control a partner. Like there would be this fear that if this person is exposed to something new, then I'm not going to know who they are. I'm not going to know how they show up, or I'm not going to know how to relate with them, right? So for example, let's say that somebody takes up dancing and they've never been dancing before. Now there could be all these new fears and insecurities about this person exploring that means that I don't know them anymore. It means that it might open opportunities for them to be exposed to new humans, or they're going to fall out of love with me, right? Like fear and insecurity creep up, and we want to control the partner. We want to tell them, no, you can't do that. No, you can't explore yourself. No, I don't want you to have that. When really, again, that squanders flourishing, because new exposure, new experience develops and evolves a person, and that makes them interesting. And a lot of times that makes them attractive, right? But when all of that is taken out, then you just get the same thoughts. You get the same mood. You get the same environment. You get the same culture in a relationship. And that is what gets frustrating. That is what gets really not inspiring, right? It's uninspired. It's not, you don't look forward to that with the same kind of enthusiasm. When you're thinking and feeling and just replaying the same things over and over, you're going to keep getting that result and you're going to hate it. Like nobody likes that. Like you don't even like some of the thoughts that you think and the way you feel all the time. Like you've got to have that ownership of constantly growing and evolving. And that's true of your partner too, but you just don't want to close them out from being able to do that. You want to be able to expand and grow, because that helps you expand and grow and build together. A lot of times having experiences like that, where you're not controlling your partner and you're also not, what's the word? I'm trying to think of, for like squashing them, suffocating them. You're also not suffocating them, right? you really want to let them be a full human and respect and honor and be curious about who they are, right? Without judgment. Okay. Now, what I would say to that, how do you do that? Live a little more dangerously. What do I mean by that? I mean, do the things, like expose yourself to things that are healthy for you, right? That are going to expose new levels of growth, new levels of enthusiasm, new levels of confidence, right? Like new levels of expression that are developing you in the direction that you want to go, right? So not dangerously in a negative way, but live a little more dangerously. Like stop putting so many risk adverse limitations on yourself, okay? And then the other thing that I would say, one of the things that I have an undergrad in journalism. So one of the things that has been really beneficial is asking questions, and particularly questions that are scary to ask, because that brings a different level of intimacy. It brings a different level of intimacy into a relationship. So when you can keep asking questions, you don't assume that you know the answers. You don't assume that your partner's always going to show up in the same way. You don't assume that you've got it all figured out. You're actually curious. There is vulnerability there. There's authenticity there. There's room for growth. There's room for intimacy and closeness and togetherness and new ways to express and support one another. And so much good can come out of just asking questions. All right. Let me see. Oh, and the other thing that I would say too, in relationship, probably in the very beginning, there was something about you that you were drawn to your partner for these things, and your partner was drawn to you for these things. And I would say it's something that was rare and valuable. Like, what, as a human, makes you rare and valuable? Yes, there's so many, for example, there's so many people that you could be drawn to, attracted to, connected with, but what makes you rare and valuable? What makes that commitment and that compatibility so like, right? What makes you rare and valuable? You've got to keep doing the things that make you rare and valuable. You can't just stop doing those once you get the relationship that you want, or once you launch the business, or once you get the position, whatever it is. Once you become a parent, you've got to keep doing the things that make you rare and valuable, because the less you do that, the more you kind of lose a sense in some degrees of who you are. All right. Oh, and then I will say the most unattractive thing you can do, or the thing that can really just suck the life out of you, is acting incongruent with who you are. So acting like you think you should, not taking ownership of how you actually show up, or giving excuses for why you showed up a certain way. Acting congruent with who you are, meaning that you actually have wisdom, you have discernment, you're able to think through something. So you can think through, if you take this action, how will you feel tomorrow? How will you feel 24 hours after you take this action? Will that still be something that was a great experience for you? Or are you going to resent it and be angry and be frustrated or blame or whatever, right? Like, you've got to be able to think through things versus just acting impulsively. So acting in ways that are incongruent with who you are, that destroys your confidence, it destroys your integrity, it really starts diminishing your character, because then you start talking to yourself in a negative way. You start feeling negative and depressed a lot of the times. You start kind of living in a way that is just very inauthentic, and it's not fun. And then that can lead you into judgment and comparison and jealousy and a lot of fear and a lot of insecurity, which is a bigger problem, and it's harder to get out of that. So keep that in mind. All right. The other thing that I want to talk about, or that's come up in relationships too, what happens if my partner doesn't support my dreams, right? And something that I know is somebody who has had the blessing of pursuing many different dreams, whether that was going to a grad school that was on my heart, or living in a certain place, or launching a business, whatever it is. Like, because I've had the grace to do that, the blessing to do that, the favor to do that, I know that dreams can be selfish. So in the sense of, not everybody's going to have that same dream. And just to expect somebody to support that, I don't believe, honestly, is fair. So what do I mean by that? I mean that we shouldn't just do a thing and ask somebody to support us or expect that, right? There needs to be some level of even if I go after this with all my heart, I'm still going to demonstrate that this relationship is a priority. It's still first. It still matters to me. This love matters to me. I'm still going to give my all here before I do this. And at the same note, if we want somebody to support us, we also have to be willing to understand what is that person's dream? What is that person's desire, right? Like, get clear so that it's not one-sided. And I just don't think that it's a fair ask. Like, yes, to some degree, there's a lot of good intention. There's a lot of beautiful things that come from pursuing dreams. So I'm not diminishing that in any sense. I'm just saying that expecting somebody to support your dream without being sensitive to how that takes time away from relationship, how that brings a different dynamic to relationship, how that brings a different stress sometimes to relationship, that's got to be factored in. And you can't just expect your partner to pick up all that weight when you're pursuing the thing that sets your heart on fire when they used to be part of that. Following? So keep that in mind. Just have some awareness, some presence, some sensitivity there, and also be interested in discovering what it is in your partner that their dream is, that their desire is, and how can you show up and support them in that also. Okay, so keep that in mind. I hear a lot the frustration of my partner won't support me, or I'm so thankful that my partner is supporting me, but make sure that you just don't get caught up in it's all about you. Just because it's your dream doesn't mean that it's everybody else's dream. Okay. All right. And then what I would say, one of the things that's really important to do, particularly if you desire or crave a long-term relationship, is yes, continually grow, evolve, but do things intentionally that enrich the relationship, right? Things that excite, things that create new energy in a good way, things that help you build and grow together. Make sure that you keep doing that. Because the thing is, I would say do that in a relationship, but I would also say make sure that you do that for you. So an example would be having your own daily life habits or your own daily practices, or having your own kind of community that helps and supports you, or your own covering and accountability. It could be a coach, it could be a mentor, whatever, right? But have your toolbox of what you do to enrich your own life. Because if a relationship ends, and I've gone through some really brutal endings, but there's a trauma there, and there's a loss there, and there's grief there, because basically what you're doing is, it's not just that you're losing a person, but you're losing part of what made your identity, or what you built yourself in. So there's kind of, again, the death of identity is the death of the soul. So what is needed in this case, when there's loss, when there's trauma, when there's a separation of some kind, is a rebirth. And I call it a wake-up call. And I definitely had one. It led to my salvation experience. It was because of a relationship. But if that rebirth doesn't happen, the scary thing is that essentially there's kind of a black hole in your soul. This is just a good example because of how black holes operate. Essentially, they suck. You know what I mean? Like, basically anything that can plug that hole, you could go after. Okay, so like, hear me out. So when you have this black hole, this gap, I call it a God gap, so only God can fill it. However, if that is not your choice, you will find something to plug the hole. And that oftentimes, when there's pain, is an addiction. So it could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be sex, it could be social media, it could be drowning out in reality TV. It's something that numbs. It's kind of like an example is either what you do. What's a good way to say this? Okay, so let's say that you are hungover. There's two ways that you can do it. You can do it in a way that's somewhat destructive to you, or you can do it kind of like an athlete and in ways that are productive to you. So hear me out visually here. So if you are hungover, a lot of times maybe the next day you want to just sleep, zone out to like junk TV, eat greasy food, and just numb out, right? But another one would be I'm going to rest this thing that hurts. I'm going to lean into these strengths. I'm going to embrace this community. I'm going to learn this new skill. I'm going to develop knowledge in this area. I'm going to bring restorations in the ways that I need it, that's going to actually grow and develop and evolve me versus just numb me out. Hopefully that helps. But essentially, when there's a breakup, I say, right, whenever there's something that changes in life, it is a wake-up call. It is an invitation to redesign. The whole point of this message, to redesign your matrix of your belief system, of your values and whether or not you're living in alignment with that, of your purpose and whether or not you've been focusing on that. It's a redesign of the matrix in your current operating system. You need to kind of reboot your system, okay? So another really good example of basically how to be present, how to bring life to all that you do is, I know when I was younger, I'm adopted, and my adoptive father and my adoptive mother got a divorce for many interesting reasons. However, when my dad was in the season of raising 3 girls, bless his heart, he would take us to Disneyland and Disney World. Okay. So we did one of those things where you had a timeshare and we would just go because, of course, when you're going through a really rough time and you've got a lot of young girls, what do? You want to take them to the happiest place on earth and make sure that they don't lose that sense of wonder. They don't lose that excitement. They don't lose that. And so I remember doing a report on Walt Disney, and I don't remember how old I was at the time, but there was many things that I noticed about Disney because of doing a report on him. One of them definitely is resilience and how long he fought for having Disneyland in the first place. But there was something that I noticed just from going around the parks, and one of them was their trash cans, which I know is so weird, but anytime you would go into like a little different town or community or whatever, the trash cans would mirror or match that world. And I thought, wow, like somebody here, whoever's vision it was, somebody's vision was so strong, so compelling, down to their trash can. Like their attention to detail was down to their trash can. It was everywhere, but down to the trash can? Like what? So I was thinking about that, and just Disney in general, you can look it up, but they have these 10 principles, but there is just such consistency in their messaging and in their story and their narrative. And so the invitation today, when you think about redesigning your matrix, whether you're single, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're questioning your relationship, whether you've lost sense of your calling and your purpose, whether you've been caught up in these limiting beliefs and scarcity thinking, this is an invitation to redesign your matrix. And think about it. What is your example of relationship? How is what you're doing daily feeding the relationship? Are you being kind when you could be oblivious? Are you being sweet when you could be frustrated? Are you being sincere and present and focused and helpful when you could be selfish and uninvolved? Are you being loving and considerate and sensitive? Are you expecting your partner just to meet you at your place of need all the time? So think about it. Does it represent what you're about? Are you creating and being the example of what you want? That would be the first thing. Before you even look at your partner, are you being the example? And have you been consistently? And where can you switch it up? And where can you redesign your matrix so that's easier for you to do? Maybe you need a community of support. Maybe you need to go on a healing journey. Maybe you need to develop spiritually. Maybe there's something that God has been telling you to do that you know that you need to actually just do. Like stop questioning, stop thinking, just do the thing, right? But what are you putting in on a daily basis? Whether this is with your calling or with your relationship, what are you putting in on a daily basis? Because sometimes we get so caught up in what we want and what we're waiting for and how it's got to be packaged and all these things, right? But we're just missing the part of, are we becoming the one? And are we taking action so that we're actually getting feedback and answers? And are we taking the action that's congruent and aligned with who we are? Are we taking all this action that we don't even like, and it doesn't even agree with who we are. And then we're expecting to receive outcomes that we want that are fulfilling. Like, it doesn't compute. But sometimes we just go. And a lot of times we're just going in our mind. We're not even going in real life. But unless you sit, unless you reflect, unless you have the courage to ask the hard, scary questions and redesign your matrix, you will get more of the same. And you probably will point fingers. But none of that is going to lead you to the beautiful results that you're after. So maybe a good assignment would be to, in redesigning your matrix, come up with the 10 principles, just like Disney has, right? Come up with what your 10 principles are. What are they? And they shouldn't be dependent on external. They've got to come from within. So that would be my encouragement is today, I invite you to think about, no, there's not one person that's a fit for you, but you do choose one. And some people might say that it's not right to be in one relationship, but my argument today to that, my different way of looking at that would be that none of us are going to stay in the same relationship. You just get to choose if you want to live relationships with different people, or if you want to give new eyes to your partner, see your partner in new eyes, right? And then also focusing on your calling. I know as I grow and evolve, so does my business. I know as I've learned and developed and evolved, so has my brand, right? And it's become more true and more aligned because of that hard work. So if I were to say, oh, I'm only here to coach, I don't believe that's right. If I'm only here to write, that's not right either. I'm only here to speak. No, like it's got to be cohesive with who I am. But I think that there's multiple expressions of that. And the more I grow and evolve, the more I can articulate who I am, what my message is, what my unique voice is, what my brand is. And that would be the same for you. So my encouragement is to live hair more dangerously, get outside your box, challenge these beliefs that you just accept as true, and decide what are you putting out on a daily basis, and where do you need to redesign your matrix. All right, guys, this is a deep one. I don't know where this download came from. It was a huge riff. I hope it's been helpful. I know that relationships are incredibly complex, so it helps to be able to simplify and bring some new perspective to that. And also our purpose, a lot of times we can get caught up in that, and that can become our identity. So if we're doing well in business, then life is good. But if we're not, then we're in like a dark night of the soul, so to speak. And that doesn't have to be the case. It doesn't have to be that dramatic, but you have to make sure that you're rooting your identity from the right place and that you're clear on what that is for you. And then you can live from that place, no matter if something changes on the outside. You can still be congruent with who you are. And that brings a sense of deep fulfillment, confidence, and peace, no matter what season that you're in. All right, guys. Oh my goodness. I hope this message has blessed you. If you want more information about how to live a spirit-led life, I have lived many years trying to figure that out. So there's a couple of great books that really break down how to reclaim your spiritual authority, how to co-labor with God, and what does that even mean? How to even develop a quiet time practice. So there's a lot of great resources there. There's also a spirit-led self-mastery practice. I know that all the noise of the world to personally develop and to do all these things, sometimes I just want to know how to realign with God and live from that. And what is God's plan for my business? And what is God's plan for my relationship? And how do I really live that authentically and have a sense of joy about how I show up, right? So that I'm not the one that's trying to control or push an agenda. So there's a self-mastery course over there that helps you really lean in to that and kind of release and let go of things that don't fit your narrative. And there's a lot of other great tools and resources. So make sure that you visit julianapage.com. And for some spirit-filled real talk too, we like to basically cope and navigate life with spirit-filled real talk, which is backing life with truth and just calling out maybe memes and things that are put out into the world that we just agree with, and actually saying, no, that might be out there, but I live according to this. And sometimes you need some spirit-filled real talk in your life. So make sure you also check out Spirit-Filled Real Talk with Juliana. It is on Spotify and also the Apple Podcast app. All right, guys, until next time, if you haven't subscribed subscribe subscribe to the channel. And then also, if this video is something that you feel like would bless somebody that you know, make